The White House says the U.S.-Iran agreement is now in effect after both President Trump and Iran's president signed it remotely. The White House Deputy Chief of Staff posted this video online last night. It shows the president signing the memorandum of understanding in Versailles ahead of his dinner with French President Emmanuel Macron. A tracker from marine traffic shows vessels sailing in the Strait of Hormuz, and Pakistan's prime minister, who mediated talks between the two sides, said last night Iran is immediately reopening the vital oil route. He also said the U.S. will lift its naval blockade. Key points of the memorandum of understanding include the immediate and permanent ending of military operations on all fronts. All fronts is key. Iran's affirmation that it will not develop or procure nuclear weapons, and the commencement of 60 days of negotiations to reach a final agreement. However, President Trump says this 2-month time frame is not an absolute cutoff.
Do you see the 60 days as a hard deadline for final agreement?
No, I don't. No. Could take longer.
So you could extend. You could extend this phase.
I don't view it as hard, no.
You don't think of it as a hard deadline?
Just as long as they're behaving, I really don't care that much.
And for the first time in months, the average price of U.S. gas has fallen a fraction of a cent below $4 a gallon. But it is still about $1 higher than the average gas price when the war with Iran began. CBS News politics reporter Kathryn Watson joins us now to talk more about this. So, Kathryn, I had an interesting conversation this morning on CBS Mornings with Aaron McLean, and I was basically asking Aaron if his understanding of this memorandum versus what the president said to the American people as to the reasons why we had to go to war with Iran, if there is a lot of daylight between the stated reasons and the objectives initially for the war and where we ended up. Talk to me about that and what the reaction has been in Washington and around the world.
Absolutely. Well, President Trump said this morning, speaking about the president's reaction, that critics of his deal are jealous, bad, or stupid. But the agreement kind of, as you mentioned, Vlad, creates maybe as many questions as it answers. The memo is just the start to technical negotiations on Iran's nuclear program. And in these complicated deals, the devil is really in the details. Now, to step back a little bit, the agreement allows Iran to sell oil and bring in profits right away. Sanctions relief ultimately will depend on Iran's compliance with a final nuclear deal. And the U.S. and partners in the Middle East are committing to a $300 billion fund for investment in Iran. But what it doesn't say is just as important, Vlad. It does not put specific caps on uranium enrichment, even as the president is saying it is very important, of course, and has from the beginning for Iran not to have access to nuclear weapons. It does not mention centrifuges. We'll see what happens in these technical talks coming up. It also does not specifically stop Iran from funding terrorist operations. That's something that would also have to come up in negotiations. And it says Iran can't charge tolls in the Strait of Hormuz for 60 days, but it doesn't talk about the future of the strait and who will control it in the future. So to step back to what you were mentioning, Vlad, of course, the strait, going back to prior to this war, Iran did not have control of the strait. So, of course, critics are saying, critics of this initial agreement are saying that the U.S. is giving too much. Both Democrats and Republicans are criticizing the terms. Let's listen.
This will be regarded as one of the biggest American disasters. And it's because Trump started this war. He didn't know how to finish it. And it looks like in too many ways he has just capitulated to the Iranians.
If I'm asked to judge this on the basis of a 14-point agreement, then it's absolutely inadequate. It's also inadequate for me to form a negative opinion about it because we simply don't know. And Congress should know.
And Republican Senator Bill Cassidy, I would also mention, called the agreement, quote, the worst foreign policy blunder in decades. So we'll see what other reactions come about over the next 24 hours here.
So, Kathryn, I was wondering this. We were promised a signing ceremony tomorrow in Switzerland. We just saw footage when we were introducing you that the document has been signed. Is this still happening, or are we just kind of moving forward?
Great question, Kelly. So we understand that the U.S. and Iran are heading to Geneva for negotiations, but a signing ceremony might not happen at all since, of course, as you mentioned, President Trump already signed that hard copy at Versailles. Vice President J.D. Vance, we've just learned, will brief reporters this morning around 11 a.m., and I'm sure this will come up.
All right, Kathryn Watson reporting from Washington for us this morning. Kathryn, always great to have you. Thank you, friend.
Thank you.
As part of the 14-point memorandum signed by the U.S. and Iran, both sides will commit to talks over the next 60 days to reach a final agreement. But big questions still remain over Tehran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Jon Donnison with our partners at BBC News is following reaction in the region from Jerusalem.
Very few people here in Israel putting a positive spin on this deal and plenty of criticism. I was just looking at the main headline in the biggest selling daily newspaper here in Israel today, and it was simply good for Iran, bad for Israel. We had the leader of the opposition, like Yair Lapid, saying that during these negotiations, Israel had been sitting in the corridor like a scolded schoolboy, saying that this whole process, the war, it had damaged relations with the United States. It's not significantly weakened Iran enough. And in fact, Iran possibly emerges in a stronger position because of the leverage it's managed to generate from the Strait of Hormuz. So Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in a tight spot, really, because he doesn't want to further upset President Trump, and he's clearly done that in the last week or so with stark criticism really, from President Trump of Prime Minister Netanyahu. But at the same time, he's under pressure politically here to do more. So he's got elections coming up in a few months' time, and his opponents are saying, look, the war aims haven't been achieved, and we've left Israel in a weaker position. So he's trying to walk a fine line. Back to you.
John, thank you. For more on the situation with Iran, we're joined by Eric Lob. He's an associate professor of politics and international relations at Florida International University. I really appreciate you joining us this morning, Eric.
Pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
So, we've talked about this deal being signed, or this memorandum of understanding. We were just hearing about the situation in Israel, and we have heard the president be very, very harsh in some of the things that he has said about Netanyahu. So what's your assessment of where U.S.-Israeli relations stand right now?
Well, my assessment is that this MOU is really going to put the relationship to the test, and it already has. And as we've heard, there's been stark or even strong criticism by Israel of this MOU, because really it puts the Strait of Hormuz issue in phase one. It grants Iran sanctions waivers on oil exports, and it delays the nuclear issue to phase two over 60 days, if not longer, which is a key security issue that the Israelis want addressed over others. And so as a result, Prime Minister Netanyahu wants to meet with Trump right away. He can't do it because of the G7 summit. We will see if they'll be meeting in forthcoming days. And really the only recourse Israel has is to try to play a spoiler in this agreement by continuing attacks in Lebanon, which this MOU is connected to in terms of cessation of hostilities.
It's not just that. I think that a lot of people are scratching their heads over. So the Iranians have said if the Israelis continue their military actions in Lebanon, that this deal will be sort of null and void. We haven't had any indications that the Israelis plan on doing that. The other thing that I thought that was interesting, Eric, is the president. Again, I'm trying to understand, because it's not been made clear to the American people, the stated reasons why the president chose to conduct this war, including Iran never having a nuclear weapon, Iran not having a ballistic missile capability, Iran not even having a viable military. Yesterday, the president, in that gaggle with reporters, suggested that it was okay for Iran to continue to have ballistic missiles because they needed to defend themselves, and also that they should continue to enrich uranium because others are enriching uranium. So help me understand just those three things: the Israeli pullout from Lebanon and the Iranian military and their operations going forward.
Well, as you said, and this MOU states it very clearly that, and this is something the Iranians have demanded for a while to protect their partner or proxy Hezbollah in Lebanon, is that the cessation of hostilities should not just be tied between Iran and the United States, but also between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon, which is something that President Trump has conceded to. And, there is quite a bit of daylight between what the objectives were in trying to contain Iran's nuclear program, its missiles and proxies, its support of other what's referred to destabilizing activities, and then moving away from all of that towards the Strait of Hormuz issue. And I think really President Trump, that is, has had a reality check that the longer this goes on, the worse this could get for Republicans in the midterm elections, the greater the economic pain can be for Americans, particularly with petroleum stockpiles running out, and as well as arms stockpiles running out for the United States in terms of how long it can continue this war.
All right, Eric Lob, really appreciate the analysis. I like that. There's quite a bit of daylight between the two sides on a number of issues. Thank you.
My pleasure.